Commodity markets are integral to the global economy. Several major events since the beginning of the current decade highlight the complex and volatile relationship between commodity markets and economic activity. Shifts in commodity markets pose challenges for emerging markets and developing economies as well. Correspondingly, we will be discussing on commodity markets evolution, challenges and policies. This exhibits global consumption of metal commodities has grown in line with GDP, while consumption of agricultural commodities resembles population growth. China dominates the consumption of most industrial commodities. Production has likewise seen a huge increase, assisted by technological developments that have boosted productivity. Commodity exporters, particularly oil exporters, are reliant on these commodities for export and fiscal revenue. This demonstrates energy prices, which were broadly stable prior to 1970s, have experienced two cycles, one associated with oil crisis of 1970s and the other with the emergence of EMDEs and China in the 2000s. Most agricultural commodity prices have followed a long-term downward path, consistent with the fact that demand grows in line with population. Evolution of metal prices have been mixed, with significant volatility in copper, a reflection of its close link with industrial activity, and a downward trend for aluminium, resulting from its relative abundance. This displays there has been a noticeable improvement in policies in commodity exporters during the past 2 decades. Rising share of commodity exporting EMDEs has adopted inflation targeting and fiscal rules, while central bank transparency has also improved. Both energy subsidies and agricultural subsidies, the latter among OECD countries, have been reduced. Historically, commodity markets have been subjected to supply management schemes. These have all ended except oil, often followed by large price falls. This shows structure of energy markets have changed significantly over the past 2 centuries, with gradual transition as new fuels have emerged. Periods of high prices have periodically led to the emergence of new producers, often via new discoveries or technologies, such as the Middle East after the Second World War and the North Sea, Mexico, and Alaska in 1970s. For example, maize productivity increased almost tenfold during 1930s to 2020. Consumption of edible oils, in particular, has seen a massive increase due to its many uses. including in food, animal feed, consumer products, and biofuels. This illustrates relationship between income per capita and commodity consumption per capita, shows signs of platooning for most commodities as income rises. Although income elasticities decline as income increases across all commodity groups, elasticities differ markedly at low income levels, high for metals and low for food commodities, with energy in between. Energy transition will change the consumption landscape of some commodities with an expected shift from energy to metals. This indicates industrial commodity prices went through two large medium-term cycles in 1970s to 2000s. Over the long term, energy prices are on an upward trend and agricultural prices are on a downward trend. Response of industrial commodities to the recession triggered by COVID has been larger than in previous recessions. Over time, imports of global shocks for commodity prices has risen, while that of commodity-specific shocks has decreased. This signifies industrial commodity price shocks are common, driven by demand and supply shocks in almost equal measure, except for aluminium. Oil and metal price shocks have asymmetric effects on economic activity. In energy and metal producers, price increases are associated with small, temporary growth accelerations. Price collapses are associated with pronounced and lasting slowdowns. Russian invasion of Ukraine has been a major shock to commodity markets and is causing significant disruptions to production and trade commodities. Earlier, large commodity price shocks triggered policy and market responses that led to increased sources of supply and, for oil, substitution away from oil and greater consumption efficiency. Over time, spike in prices following the war in Ukraine will likely once again spur more efficient energy consumption and a faster transition away from fossil fuels, particularly if supported by appropriate policy responses. Structure of global industrial commodity demand has changed fundamentally over the past quarter century. Advanced commodities share of energy and metals consumption has declined markedly. Meanwhile, China has emerged as the world's largest consumer, accounting for more than half of global demand for coal, metals, and iron ore. While China's industrialization draws many parallels with earlier industrializations, such as those of UK and US, speed of its ascent has been without precedent. Benchmark pricing based on competitive commodity markets flourished since the late 18s for commodities such as cotton and grains. However, further progress in the mid 20th century was hindered by protectionist trade policies and a proliferation of supply management schemes. Development of competitive markets and associated price benchmarks re-emerged following rounds of trade liberalization in 1950s and 60s. Collapse of Bretton Woods fixed exchange rate system gave impetus to futures markets for currencies and to associated innovations in hedging techniques that have influenced organized markets generally. Today, main commodity markets have mature global price benchmarking mechanisms which assist in the efficient allocation of resources and the reduction of market risks for producers and consumers alike. Attempts to set up longer term supply arrangements laid the foundation for their eventual failure. High prices that such arrangements may have created for a while induced investment and innovation, brought new suppliers to the market, and forced consumers to substitute alternative products. OPEC may have been an exception in this longevity, but it has not succeeded in reducing the volatility of oil prices. Adoption of well designed policies would allow increased urbanization to proceed along with a reduction in commodity use. These would include policies to encourage public transit, greater population intensity, improved insulation of buildings, and investment in modern energy saving equipments. Technology and policies in response to climate change could drive a new transformation to a low carbon emission economy. These forces will profoundly transform the structure of commodity consumption over the next few decades. Metals and other materials required to purchase clean energy would see a strong rise in output, while the consumption of fossil fuels will start a permanent decline. Consumption of fossil fuels is expected to decline, especially for coal and crude oil. In contrast, demand for metals and minerals is likely to see a boost from transition, since energy infrastructure such as wind turbines and solar require significant amounts of metal in their manufacture. For agriculture, a surge in demand for biofuels could see increasing competition for those crops with traditional food crops, putting upward pressure on prices. Since 1970s, slumps in the prices of industrial commodities have been associated mainly with declines in global economic growth, geopolitical events affecting supply, and the emergence of new producers. In contrast, slumps in the prices of agricultural commodities have been associated mostly with commodity specific supply and policy shocks and less with aggregate demand shocks. Commodity prices frequently move in tandem, especially during periods of major economic upheaval. COVID driven global recession of 2020 is the last or the latest example of a common global shock to commodity markets. When compared with previous recessions, rebound in prices in 2020-21 was faster and steeper for almost all major commodity groups. This reflected the extraordinarily strong economic rebound from the pandemic-induced global recession, along with difficulties in quickly restoring commodity supply. Today's presentation is based on World Bank's publication aimed at commodity markets. Thanks for watching.